Hello everyone and welcome to today's session. I'm Hani Samson, but you can call me Sam, and I am the channel specialist of IP Systems Inc. And of course, your host for today. Also, joining us are my colleagues from IP Systems and some of the experts from TeamViewer Singapore. We would like to first start off by thanking you for joining us today in learning more about TeamViewer Tensor. Our live webinar today will focus on the significance of having a reliable, enterprise-grade remote access and control solution during the work from home era. Now that we are still working together while being apart, the need of your IT and security teams to have tools which enables them to securely provide support not only to your employees but also your customers have increased. This problem that we at IP Systems and TeamViewer would like to address by introducing the most advanced remote access, control, and support solution for enterprises in the market today, the TeamViewer Tensor. Now, to begin our info session, I would like to introduce our business development representative, Mr. Mark Bugay, to let you know more about who we are and what we can do for your organization. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Sam. Thank you, Sam, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Hope everyone are healthy and safe. And to start off, let me share my screen. Are you able to see my screen, everyone?
Yes, visible.
Oh, great. So I'll start off with getting to know IT systems and who we are and what we do and provide to different clients and organizations. So as a company, we envision IP Systems to be the thought leader in the Philippine market on cybersecurity and to be a positive enabler of change in the IT community. We have a strong belief that being in the IT field, we have a platform that we can use to make good and positive changes in our local community. And we do this by sharing our knowledge and our expertise, and we aim to educate not only clients but Filipinos in general about the importance of internet security. Our vision is we envision IP Systems to be the thought leader in the Philippine market on cybersecurity and to be a positive enabler of change in the IT community. As a company, we want to educate not only clients but Filipinos in general in the importance of internet security. Part of our mission is to secure 1,000 active customers by 2025 by keeping networks, data infrastructure, and people safe from cyber threats and vulnerabilities while adhering to our core values. Coincidentally, our mission statement ties up very closely with the National Cybersecurity Plan 2022. This is a strategic framework that was created and adopted by DICT in cooperation with CICC. In summary, this plan is meant to address the urgency to protect the nation's critical infrastructures, government networks, small medium enterprises to large corporations, and also to raise awareness to every Filipino about cyber risk and the need to adopt the right information on cybersecurity. Aligned with the plan is that IP System want to educate and empower companies and employees of the importance of having cybersecurity solutions for data security. So as a company, we want to educate and engage your workforce. We want to inspire better cybersecurity habits. We want to reduce security incidents. Plus, we want to build a culture of security and go beyond awareness with the culture built to keep your organization secure and also all of the companies here in the country. As an IT distributor of cybersecurity brands, we actively study the Data Privacy Act so that we can help our clients comply with the DPA security requirements. As mentioned, DPA 2012 or Data Privacy Act of 2012 is a law that seeks to protect all forms of information, be it private, personal, and sensitive. So, as a Philippine distributor of award-winning and trusted brands in the fields of backup and disaster recovery, remote access, vulnerability assessment, penetration testing, and cybersecurity training and certifications, we do provide all of the brands here. And now we'll be sharing with you TeamViewer Tensor, as we believe this can definitely help the organizations and clients here in the country. So as mentioned, we have aligned most of our brands that we have partnered with to the primary security requirements of DPA. So this includes solutions under encryption, access control, malware protection, data restoration, recovery, and ability to have access to data backup in case of physical or technical incidents, and help you in process of vulnerability assessment. To give you a background of what our company can do to your growing organization, we do provide security solutions under four pillars that we follow. Basically, if you have requirements for IT infrastructure security, remote access and monitoring security, email and data security, and cybersecurity training certifications, we can definitely provide that one. Plus, we also have other services like requirements for data migration, network and endpoint security consultation, support and maintenance, email hosting, technical training, business continuity, design, and planning. So, uh, moving forward, if you have other questions or want to know more about IP Systems products, solutions, and services that I presented and mentioned earlier, kindly do feel free to contact and shoot us an email, and we can definitely schedule a meeting and discuss more details with you. Back to you, Sam.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. Thank you so much again for that very informative presentation of our solution and services, Mark. And guys, as he mentioned in the presentation, not only do we carry some of the best brands in IT, cybersecurity, and data protection, we also offer services such as cybersecurity training and certification, email hosting, support and maintenance, and other professional services. Now, on to our next presenter to tell us more about TeamViewer Tensor, its features, capabilities, security, and more. Here is Mr. William Tan, TeamViewer Singapore Channel Sales Manager. And just a friendly reminder for our attendees here, if you have any questions during the Solutions Complete walkthrough, we would be more than happy to answer them after Sir William's presentation. So just type your questions in the chat box. Thank you. And hi, Sir William.
Hi everyone, thanks a lot Sam for the introduction. Let me put up my slide so that everybody can see. Okay, hold on. Everybody can see the slide?
Yes,
Thumbs
sir,
up?
we can see it.
Okay, cool. All right, so thank you once again, Sam, for the introduction. Again, my name is William. I'm actually the channel sales manager for TeamViewer, covering Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, as well as Hong Kong, right? So if you have opportunity that you are looking at for TeamViewer, do drop IP System an email or drop me an email or contact me, and I'm more than happy to support you guys. All right, today's presentation or today's webinar, thanks to IP System for organizing. It's about TeamViewer Tensor, right? And what we do as a company, what we do as a product as well, right? The agenda for today, just to give you an overview, we're going to talk about TeamViewer as a whole, as a quick short introduction. We're going to go into TeamViewer Tensor. What are some of the key features within the TeamViewer Tensor and the offering, and what we do moving forward, going forward, other than just remote connectivity. We also have the capability to support AR or augmented reality, which I'll go into a little bit later on, right? And we're going to talk in between. We're going to talk about or highlight some security feature of TeamViewer Tensor, and then at the end we have 2 customer examples that we want to share with you. So TeamViewer, who we are. I think a lot of you probably would have heard or used TeamViewer. TeamViewer started in 2005, and as we come, or as the company grows, right now we have a 2.5 billion connectivity globally using TeamViewer, right? So TeamViewer has a couple of software. I'll explain to you in a little detail later on, right? But we have grown across the years. From being a remote connectivity company to doing a little bit more, right? So this is our growth and our expansion in terms of use cases. I think if you are familiar with, or probably you are familiar with TeamViewer, we started as remote support, remote access. But over the years, we see the increment of technology and especially the requirement from user. So we have moved from this space, the core business, to innovative and extending our use cases into new territory, especially in the enterprise space, which we are going to talk about today, especially on the Tensor. We are also in the Internet of Things, right? Internet of Things, whereby we have the capability to provide sensors, to incorporate into your organization, right? Especially if you're in the oil and gas industry or in the manufacturing industry. We are also looking at augmented reality. Augmented reality is whereby you actually put on smart glasses, smart devices, and you can actually use that smart devices to do a couple of things. For the logistics, you can do picking activities. For the oil and gas industry, you can use the smart glasses to do what you call maintenance, so on and so forth, right? So these are some of the key areas that we are moving into, right? But for today focus, we're going to talk mainly about this enterprise SaaS or enterprise solution, which is the Tensor. Some of this partner integration that we work very well with. Here is the middle part is the integration. So if you're using some sort of a ServiceNow solution or Zendesk or Salesforce, we have the capability to integrate TeamViewer into that platform. All right. Meaning, if let's say today you have ServiceNow or Zendesk, right, we can actually incorporate a button whereby you can actually click on the button and you can actually create a remote section with your support team in the backend. So these are some of the integration partner that we work with very well, right? So what I want to share with you right now, this slide is basically what we used to do in our core license. This is what we term as core license. Core license, you have business user, premium user, and corporate user, right? They have different, the function is similar, but it's just that the number of user or license count and all that stuff is a little bit different, right? If let's say today you are looking at procuring a TeamViewer core license, please reach out to IP system, right? But this as a whole is what the different pillar covers, right? I'm not going to go into detail on this one because today we are talking about Tensor. And what is Tensor? If you are in an organization, if today you are an organization that have a very large network of offices located worldwide, or if not, maybe within Philippines, located within different provinces within Philippines, all right? Or you have an IT in supporting employee using diverse computing or mobile devices, which is a very common thing now. A lot of your user wants to use their mobile device to access company resources. Or if you're a company who is increasingly having a mobile workforce, right, which needs to, again, needs to access corporate application on the road, then this is Tensor is something that you want to consider or think about. Or you want to have, POS network. If you have a support, if you need to support a large POS network, TeamViewer Tensor has the capability to do that, to manage devices, right? outsource critical software development to your third party or outsource developer. We want to actually ensure that this developer coming in is secured, nothing goes up to them. Then you should consider TeamViewer Tensor, right? So these are some of the key areas that we support, right? In many instances, if you think that one of these or multiple of these comes under your organization, please speak to us at the end, right? TeamViewer Tensor, we are a completely cloud-based SaaS software. Everything is in the cloud, right? So we work with a single sign-on. If let's say today you have Okta or you plan to have an Okta environment in the near future, we work with Okta or Azure or ADFS as well. So this is a single sign-on that you can actually incorporate into a TeamViewer Tensor, right? You can have multiple devices at the back end, all right, whereby you can actually connect to Windows platform or Mac or vice versa. So regardless of what OS or platform at the back or in the front, we actually support those devices, even including mobile devices, iOS and Android, right? Once the session is established, everything is encrypted. You are ensured that the connection between the user device and your application at the backend is encrypted. And again, giving you a capability to provide auditing, a comprehensive audit log for the purpose of compliance, as well as auditing purpose. Right. So, what are some of the key highlights? Secure connectivity, like I mentioned, everything is encrypted. Scale with the cloud. If let's say your organization today it's 100, for example, 100 user, you want to grow to 200, 400, 500, even 1,000, we can scale together with you because we are very much into cloud-based, right? Work from any device, anywhere, and at any time. This is what TeamViewer Tensor can do, or TeamViewer as a whole can do, right? If you have a remote access or you need remote access to support control, we are able to do or capable to do that as well, right? Easy deploy. We can actually deploy with Tensor. You can actually deploy for a user base of 1,000 user or 1,000 devices, right? So what are some of the key features that we can have or we can offer to customers who could use TeamViewer Tensor, right? First of all, you're talking about large scale employee support. If your organization is 50, 100, I think it is still manageable from your support team. But as your company grows to 250, 500, 1,000, and especially when it's spread across the different province or even spread across different region or territory or country, then you realize that it's going to be a challenge to support this number of employee regionally. So what happened in a normal scenario without TeamViewer? So in this case, let's take, for example, in this case where you have a user remotely, it could be in a different province, it could be in a different country. He says he cannot load PowerPoint, right? He contact the support, right? The support says, well, you're using a MacBook that's not standard issue. Can you please try restarting your computer? I think some of you may find this very common. So you have a user who experienced issue, they contact the support team, the support, try to rectify. So there's a lot of, up and down conversation, right? And ultimately, when things are done, it takes 30 minutes, right? And even 30 minutes, it may not necessarily resolve the issue on the user device, right? But with a TeamViewer in place, you could possibly, but you could actually provide support remotely. For in this case, we have the same user who says he's at a hotel, cannot load PowerPoint, right? You have the support team in the backend, sees that you are using a Mac, can you make sure you're connected to internet? Give you a couple of seconds. 5 minutes later, the support team can tunnel into the user desktop to then manage and support the particular user. Right, this is very similar to all your core solution or core licenses that you have in place for those who have TeamViewer core, right? So this is something that TeamViewer can do and support the user. right? The difference between the TeamViewer, Tensor, and Core is that we can actually roll up to huge environment. Let's say 1,000 users spreading across, different territory. So in this case, the issue is resolved as soon as possible in that sense. What about mobile device? So this person or this particular user is at a conference and we need to use the mobile device to do some work. Again, he calls support. Support launched the TeamViewer quick support apps on the mobile device, and within a couple of minutes, you can generate tunnel into the device to actually resolve whatever the user is experiencing or facing. 5 minutes later, thank you very much. You guys are great. Resolved. So we can actually roll up to multiple or large organizations to support large number of users. We also are able to manage multiple devices, right? Devices such as your backend servers, your application, so on and so forth. From a TeamViewer Tensor possibility, we can actually manage up to 1,000 devices and effortlessly. We can do a silent rollout, script task, bookmark devices, so that actually from a simple console, your support team can actually deliver and roll out, updates and so on and so forth, right? So give you an example here as well. I think these are also pretty familiar with some of you. You have your backend servers. Server requires some maintenance, right? Again, how do I get sorted out? You have the user, this is critical. The support team, thinks that he needs to travel to the data center in order to update, upgrade, or manage the devices or servers at the backend, right? Deadline is end of the week. 1 week later, set up, running, but it cost me a day to travel. So the time needed for the support person to actually access the data center or travel to the data center may take a while. All right, but in the in the TeamViewer Tensor environment, we support, like I said, 1,000 devices out there in your environment. If let's say a server somewhere, can be within province, can be within the same territory or within different location, you can still tunnel in, right? It pre-installed on TeamViewer pre-installed on the server. You can actually tunnel in, and within minutes, you can actually or update the server, making sure that all the servers are updated according to the requirement and things like that. Maintenance soft. So rather than spending time traveling to the data center, you can actually use TeamViewer Tensor to remotely tunnel in and update and upgrade the system. Right. So this is of TeamViewer Tensor, managing multiple devices out in the field. Right. The other things that we do is allow your employee to work 100% with efficiency from anywhere. Right. So remote working can truly be efficient as and when you are physically in the office or not in the office. Right. When we provide the remote worker with the capability to connect and do its work without having the loss of efficiency. Right. So another example, traditional scenario with VPN. So let's say you are a worker and you are a user and you provide your user with VPN into the network, which is a very common thing, especially remote user. Right? VPN extend into the corporate network using a laptop, right? Next, he gets connected to his application. It could be a cloud application. It could be a what you call application in their infrastructure, in their office space. Right? And the laptop is directly connected to each application server independently as is a virtual in the LAN. Right? So this is direct connection. Right? But using TeamViewer Tensor, you realize that what we do is this: to authenticate, right? And you can actually access your corporate resources, but only the screen refresh image data is being sent to the user laptop. So let me just jump back a bit to the previous one. So in this previous scenario where the user has the VPN connection, once the VPN is established, the user has direct access into all the resources in the backend. Right? Imagine if today this user laptop is compromised, the chances are the compromised laptop could actually the virus could actually flow into the infrastructure as well. But in a TeamViewer Tensor environment, right? Like I said, you connect and only the screen refresh is being sent to the user. Right? All process connectivity happens between the desktop and terminals, and nothing goes out into the user. So only the refresh screenshot is sent out. So you can, in this kind of environment, you can ensure that it is safe, it is secure, and it can allow the user from anywhere to connect to the infrastructure to do its work. Right. So this gives you assurance that any of your remote worker out there can still access the corporate resources at any time, and ensure that there's a security surrounding it. Right. Especially when you have, let's say you have management who happens to be on holiday, and something happens to the organization and needs the management decision, or needs the management to jump in to do something or to access some application, right? This is good for such a case, taking care of critical needs while traveling. So with TeamViewer Tensor, all you need is a 3G connectivity to be able to access, right, the infrastructure or to access application in your organization. It could be your laptop, could be your mobile device, right? Any devices that you have currently while your bosses are on travel, you can still connect to the company resources using your mobile device. So this gives you the flexibility. This gives, especially people who are on vacation, holiday, the flexibility to still access the corporate resources. Right. I mentioned earlier, how about people who you outsource to do coding, right? There's certain degree of danger here if you look at it carefully. Reason is because if you have an outsourced coding person or developer, what you do is this is the developer, you give him access, right, to the corporate resources to do his coding or to do his programming. The challenge is this person could have the intention, of maliciously making copies of program, downloading. If let's say he has access into your resource, possibility he can actually go into application, download certain apps, certain document, so on and so forth. So there is a danger there, right? So with the outsourced developer, you want to control, you want to manage what he or she can do. But in a TeamViewer and TeamViewer Tensor environment, you can still give him the access, but only the screenshot is being sent out to the developer, right? You can actually limit or control all file transfer so as to prevent the developer from downloading or copying any detail or any data out of the organization. So if this kind of environment, you realize that it can be a safe environment, you still can have a developer, right, accessing the network to do your coding or programming, but you limit in terms of only the screenshot. You can do what he or she needs to do, and nothing else gets transferred out of the network to the desktop. So we provide a kind of safe, secure environment for your outsourced developer as well. Again, we have the capability to do single sign-on, right? We incorporate with Okta, Azure, ADFS. If this is something that you plan to do in the future, or even you have it now, you can also incorporate this single sign-on into a Tensor environment. In our management console, we do have a link for that purpose. So, right. So in this, if you look at this diagram, you realize that the user goes in, connects to a single sign-on or authentication server, and that's where he gains access to the network. Same thing, it can be in the office, it can be out of the office. Right? So TeamViewer Tensor provides you with that flexibility. Right. I mentioned POS earlier as well. Right? I think in some territory you have a customer who has many POS system that's strewn all over the place. All right, you could have let's say a 7-Eleven kind of environment, those what they call convenience store, right? You can, and if you have multiple POS system across the nation, right? TeamViewer Tensor do support devices. And in that sense, we can actually help to remote support this POS system. So this is another example, right? So you have an environment where there is no TeamViewer installed or implemented. You have a remote user or remote chain or store having the issue with the cashier machine, right? So it calls back to support to see what can be done, all right? Where should I find information? Nothing works, right? Quickly reboot the device, tell me what happened maybe. So there's always this up and down or correspondence between the user location as well as your support team, right? Everything that is done, everything the support guy advised, the user has done it, you know, and at the end of the day, it takes about 20 minutes or 30 minutes or even an hour to resolve an issue, right? But if let's say you do have a TeamViewer Tensor in place, right? What we do is we then remotely, if it's the same issue, we remotely tunnel in from a support desktop, tunnel into the POS system to actually help to do the reboot and the system upgrade if necessary. And this whole thing may take only probably 2 minutes, 5 minutes, depending. Right. So the time spent in order to help or support your POS system can be narrowed down, can be shortened in a faster way of supporting or maintaining this POS system. Right. So again, POS system is there to actually help eliminate downtime, right? Especially if you have a very wide network of POS system in the region. So support your customer POS system. If let's say you are a provider and you are managing a POS system for your customer, you can actually use Tensor to do that support. Or if you are a customer that has your own POS system that you convenience store so-called across the nation, you can actually use TeamViewer Tensor to support this POS system as well. Again, maintain information on your POS system using TeamViewer Tensor. You can update, push down information, push down maintenance, on your POS system. So this gives you the flexibility. Not only there's no need to travel to that particular store, convenience store. You can actually remotely update, upgrade, maintain all the POS system, right? Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, it saves time, it saves travel time, and actually increase the service value with this remote support as a service to your customer if they're using POS system or to your own POS system, what they call environment. Conditional access. So TeamViewer has this conditional access that adds another layer of security, right? All of us will have firewall in place. A firewall is basically yes, no kind of thing, right? You open the gate or close the gate. Whereas in TeamViewer Tensor conditional access, you provide an added layer of security whereby you determine this particular user, what application he or she can access, right? So, like I said, firewall for all your corporate network security to tighten it, right? But you still have user who needs certain access to certain application. Do you want to control this user from downloading or doing file transfer, things like that? You can use conditional access to actually manage that aspect, right? So what's conditional access? So without conditional access, you allow everything. Right, from a user standpoint, you open up the firewall, the user can actually access all the backend application, right? Or you block everything, right? So this is basically what firewall main purpose is. But with a conditional access, TeamViewer conditional access, right? Your firewall can still be maintained as it is, the policy, but you create a access for the user using TeamViewer conditional access to allow him or her to access certain application in the backend. So this is not a bypass. This is basically providing an added security in your network so that particular user can only access certain application from where he is outside of the office. Same goes in this case, right? He goes in, he has no policy set for this person, then he cannot access your network, right? But still, this conditional access is there to provide a second layer of security for in your organization, especially for remote user who needs to access certain critical application. Right. Centrally controlled TeamViewer usage as well using conditional access. So at the end of the day, there are four things that you need to take away from a TeamViewer Tensor. First, it's easy to have a mass deployment. If today you have an organization that's growing, right? If you have 500 users, 1,000 users globally or regionally, you can actually use TeamViewer Tensor to roll out remote connectivity and to support all these users in a matter of hours instead of days, right? You can have silent rollout. You don't have an end user disruption. In a complex environment, we can still support you guys as well. Or a large scale deployment in terms of tens of thousands of devices in hours and not weeks. Right? You have a single sign-on capability. If today you have an Okta environment or you want to do a single sign-on 6 months down the road, we have the capability already to support that. Right? Just using the Okta license, you can actually plug into Tensor, turn it on. Right? If you are an organization that needs to comply, right, and you are an organization that needs auditing report for compliance, for auditing purposes, TeamViewer Tensor has a very extensive reporting feature and function, whereby you can actually then put into a report as to which user, accessing what application, what time, so on and so forth, right? Everything that they do is all recorded in this audit log. So you have a very extensive report. Security. If security is something that is always at the top of our mind, which is always the case because we need a secure environment for remote users to access, you can be sure that we have a high level of security. The encryption between the user and the application in the backend is encrypted with 256-bit ES session encoding. Right, we are ISO 27001 certified, SOC 2 certified and compliant. So we have all the certification in terms of security is concerned. So our session is secure, is highly secure. If there's something that's on your mind. Right. So that was the 4 key feature of TeamViewer Tensor. But let's say today you have a development team that creates your mobile application, which is a very common thing as well, right? You want to be able to manage and manage these devices. You want to be able to support this application on your mobile device. We have a mobile SDK, right? And the good thing about this mobile SDK is it supports, or rather it enables supporters to access and see information within the apps only, not the entire mobile device. So you can actually ensure your user, if they install the application, if let's say you need to have a session with that particular user mobile device, the support team will only see the application that you created internally, not be able to see the entire mobile device, right? So that ensures that there is security, that ensures that there's privacy within it. Right. Another thing that we have is what we term as co-browsing and chat. Right? And it's a powerful tool. If today you have a support team that needs to access a user or needs to communicate with a user, and the user says, I'm lost, I don't know how to log into certain things or certain application, can your support advise? Support team can tunnel into the user, again, is encrypted, and work with that particular user. If let's say the support needs the user to put in the credential, user ID and password, all right? In a co-browsing session means whatever the user sees in the browser, the support user will also see in his browser. But the good thing is, if the user needs to put in important credential, user ID, password, identity number, credit card number, what the support side will see is basically asterisks. They will not see the full content, right? So that provides some form of security to ensure that the support do not see what has been typed from the user side. And at the same time, the support can still guide that user to fill in some information, updates, so on and so forth. So co-browsing and chat is a function within TeamViewer Tensor, right? So I mentioned all about the good thing about TeamViewer Tensor. Now in the cybersecurity 2021, currently we are almost at the tail end of 2021, and there's a lot of work from home, organization or countries that's asking people to work from home. Now working from home is good, or may not be good for some customer, but the fact is when you work from home, there's a possibility that your device, because when you work from home, there's no control. The user will go to certain application or certain website, to watch movie or whatever, and without them knowing, they may have downloaded certain viruses, right? So we do have the capability, right? TeamViewer also have an endpoint solution. We work with Malwarebyte to support your endpoint, to protect your endpoint, right? It is in the TeamViewer Tensor. All you need to do is probably buy a malware license, and you activate it, and then you push down to the user devices, right? So we have that capability to support and safeguard the user device. And if let's say today you want to do patch management, right, where you have you want to deploy and update patches on servers or even your user desktop remotely, we have the capability to do that. Roll out silent updates, patches, detect vulnerability in terms of their software, whether the software is outdated, so on and so forth. Then we can actually ping the user, or we can actually update the software patches for that particular user. So patch management is also part of our offering. You need probably an additional license to do that, patch management. All right. So now we go into a couple of slides that talk about a little bit in the area of augmented reality. Now within the TeamViewer Tensor, we have the capability to incorporate what we term as Assist AR. What is Assist AR? Basically, if you have a user who is remote, right, and the user is facing issue, let's say maintenance issue, don't know what to do, right, and having difficulty calling or connecting or having a conversation with the support person. So what you can do is the support person can ask the user in the remote site to turn on your phone using your mobile device. You install Assist AR on your mobile device and turn it on. Right? The support team then can connect to the mobile phone, and whatever the user points the phone at, the support person can see from the mobile device, from the user mobile device. And then from there, you can actually advise the user what to do, where to get the where to what to turn on, what to turn off, so on and so forth. Right. So augmented reality is part of our solution offering. All right. You probably need a license called TeamViewer Assist AR. You can actually incorporate it into a TeamViewer Tensor, and then you can actually guide your remote user. If let's say in a utility or oil and gas environment or manufacturing environment, you need to guide the user to turn on certain things, or the user having issue do not know what to do. This is the perfect solution for that. So instead of traveling all the way to the remote site, you can actually use your mobile device to do just that. So what is the main key feature? Remote camera sharing and voice over IP, so you can actually use the mobile device to see the remote site, as well as communicate between the user and the support at the backend. All right. You can actually highlight on 3D object and text annotation, meaning you can actually circle, okay, ask the user, go to this area here, you can circle it, or you can actually do an arrow and point says, do this or do that. All right. In this area, in this third picture, what the support person is asking the user to do is turn this knob anti-clockwise, right? So this is something that you can actually advise the user on the remote side using Assist AR and the mobile device. And this entire session can be recorded. You can also transfer file if you need to, for him to see the schematic view if necessary, or you can actually do an OCR to capture some barcodes and things like that to convert it into readable text. So these are Assist AR. That means you have a TeamViewer Tensor. You want to move, forward and do more things with TeamViewer Tensor. You can actually incorporate Assist AR into that environment as well. Finally, we do have the capability to integrate with smart glasses, right? We have a solution called Frontline. which is a workflow software. You can actually incorporate that into a Tensor environment, especially for manufacturing, especially for utilities, logistics. You can actually use this to do a lot of things. Now that's another story. Probably we have another session to dwell deeper into this, right? But just to give you a taste of what is the capability of Tensor. So Tensor is not just a remote connectivity. It is more than just a remote connectivity. It can roll out to multiple large organizations. You can actually do conditional access. You can actually incorporate with your single sign-on. You can do remote support. You can do remote patching. We also have endpoint security, so on and so forth. So this is a very good solution, for a large organization who needs connectivity, who needs security, who wants to ensure that the rollout is easy and simple, and at the same time for your remote user to be able to access the corporate resources easily, right? So this is something to think about, right? So here are two customers. Boller is actually a food production company in Germany, right? They actually use Tensor to deploy for more than 1,000 technicians in 140 countries, right? Reliable and fast troubleshooting, I think that's what they want to do, significantly saving in travel costs. So instead of traveling up and down, you use Tensor to remotely support your user in the remote site. And then finally, Sharp. I think Sharp is a very familiar name for all of us, and they use it to support 2,500 employees, right, globally. So you can see that if the bigger your organization are, the easier it is for you to use TeamViewer Tensor to roll out your support infrastructure. Right. That being said, I come to the end of my presentation. Right. I will also now hand the time to Levi, who is our solution engineer, and he will then provide you with some overview, or what you call the what you call pardon me, the highlight of the management console within Tensor, TeamViewer Tensor. Right. Over to you, Levi.
Thank you, William. Hopefully you can see my screen and you can hear me okay.
Yes, all good.
Excellent. So the first feature that I'm going to show you is the single sign-on feature. So once it's enabled in your TeamViewer company profile, you'll be able to log in and leverage different identity providers such as Okta, such as Azure AD, Google G Suite, and look, as long as it's SAML 2.0, you should be able to leverage it. But we do have native integrations with some of those vendors or IDPs that I just mentioned. So you can sign in. This is the TeamViewer full client. You can sign in here. This is where your agents would be, or support personnel would be remoting in to fix people's problems. And once I try to log in with my email address that's been activated with single sign-on, you'll be presented with this screen here. We use Okta, so it's looking for my Okta credentials. So I'm just using that single password that I use for all my applications, managed by a single sign-on, and I am then passed through, and I now have access to TeamViewer and any of those devices that I have access to in my computers and contacts, which are restricted by either conditional access and the policies that are set up for me and my particular user profile. So one of the features, I can now jump into the management console directly from the full client. So switching into a browser now, you can see the management console that has now passed through my single sign-on credentials. You'll notice that I didn't need to log in again. If you went directly to the website, login.teamviewer.com, you would follow the same process as far as entering your single sign-on credentials. So you can see here, this is the user management section. this is where the list of users are. These users can be synced in with a couple of integrations with TeamViewer Tensor. One of them being Azure Active Directory or Azure AD, SCIM, or using OctaSCIM or SCIM. You can sync in a particular set of groups from those particular identity providers to be able to leverage a nice, easy way to sync your users in into the TeamViewer management console, as we call it. So here is the single sign-on section that I mentioned before. We have some great community articles to go through the single sign-on activation, but once it is all set up, we have some management tools. So things that we can do is we can set up email exclusions. So maybe you want to set up an email exclusion to make sure that if the single sign-on goes down for whatever reason, you have a failback email address, so you can add an email exclusion in there. You can also add a company exclusion if you need to do a company-wide exclusion for momentarily while single sign-on is being addressed. You can also set the domain owners. So these domain owners are the people that actually see this section of TeamViewer Tensor. So you enable that for those particular people that need to manage the single sign-on for TeamViewer. You can also deactivate it at any time for maintenance reasons. So that is single sign-on. Very quickly on its setup and activation, how it works from the agent side, and as well as for those company administrators managing the management console. One of the other key features, which I'm going to show you now, is the event logs. So this is any event that has been created within the TeamViewer session or remote session, plus all those other events that have been happening in the management console itself. So I just pick a date range and I can say get events, and it will basically do a search now for the last week to find out all the events. So you can see lots of events that have happened. You can see some start sessions here as examples. So what that means is we've got a timestamp of when that occurred and the author of that particular one. We can drill down by particular author if we need to. So in this instance, what I'm going to show you is if I click on one of the started session types, the information that I'm gathering is we know that it was a remote control session. We know the ID of where it came from. And we also know the name of the user that initiated the outbound TeamViewer remote control session. And we also have the ID of the person that it connected to. And we also have the alias of that particular device. So it'll be the TeamViewer alias or computer name, for example. And these are the types of rules that were enabled basically based on the policies. What's important about that, if we wanted to look at a particular session type, something like a file transfer could be something very important to find out, whether someone was copying files across or maybe they're bringing files home. We can actually find out that information. So if I click on the top again, we now know exactly what time and what date that occurred. And as I drill down, we have that same information about the values of the connection. But we also have here down in the bottom where the source file came from on this person's user profile. And we can see the name of the file that they copied across and what was the file transfer type. So we're looking at a drag and drop. So we have those features that are part of the product. These also can be disabled as part of policy. In this particular case, they were able to do it, and it was recorded. So you do have that information at hand. All of these event logs are captured for 1 year of the, and then recycled every year after that. So other things that have changed, if we have a look really quickly, is say maybe someone made a change to a policy which might be important for the security of those people that are connecting to different devices. So we've got here Anton made a policy, he updated it, and we can see here he changed something that was true as now set to false. So again, capturing all those events, whether they're in the remote control session or in the management console. All these can be downloaded into a CSV, or you can have them integrated with your event logging systems, maybe something like a SIEM. We have a web API to be able to pull that data. The next part I'm just going to quickly show you is the conditional access. And with conditional access, this is setting up this rule engine. So once we set up your conditional access server, all your TeamViewer remote session traffic will be going through this conditional access server, and we set up different rules. The rules are based here. An example would be you can create a source to from one device to another device. So that is one particular rule that you can choose. So once a device has been registered to the management console through mass deployment, you can set up a rule to say this device can only access this device, so regardless of the person that logs into that TeamViewer account on that device. We can also set up a particular account, so it could be my account that is connecting to a particular device, for instance, or we can change it to a group of devices, and we can choose then which devices I have access to. So maybe I'm looking after the mobile suite for this particular office. So that is there's lots of I guess different options and different rules that you can create. One that I will point out is that you can sync your directory groups. What that means is if you've got Azure AD or on-premise AD, Active Directory, you can then choose a group. So let's choose the second level support team and say they can have access to a particular device, or it could be, this could be a server, for instance. So there's lots of different ways to be able to create different rules for different types of access, whether it's singular or multiple devices, and you can use those directory groups that you can leverage those directory groups. So yeah, that's the bulk key features of TeamViewer Tensor. Hopefully that gives you a little bit more information. I'll now pass it back.
Right.
All right.
Thank you so much, Sir Levi and Sir William. So for our attendees, do you have any questions for them? Okay, it seems that they understood the presentation well, Sir William and Sir Levi. So for our attendees here, if you have future questions or inquiries, you can get in touch with us and then we will attend to your concerns. Okay, so thank you so much again, Sir William and Sir Levi, for that very insightful and thorough presentation of Tensor. So do you have any, you want to cover something before we wrap up, Sir William?
Yeah, so just a quick wrap up. So I guess both myself and Levi has given you a presentation of Tensor, TeamViewer Tensor, and also an overview of the management console and what it can be done, what you can do with it. So if let's say today, tomorrow, rather, if you have a requirement, please reach out to IP System, please reach out to Sam, Milan, and then we are more than happy to have another session, a separate session to go in depth with you as a customer. All right, back to you, Sam.
Okay, thank you so much again, Sir William, for that speech. Okay, for our attendees, thank you so much for attending this webinar. So now we're going to announce the winners of our early bird prize. So it's a 500 peso shopping voucher for Shopee and Lazada. Okay, if you see your name here on the screen, please wait for our email how to claim your prize. Okay, so congratulations to Mr. Kim Patrick Jugado from Misuga Management Services, Inc. Next, Mr. Dominic Erive from 3Core Leaders Tech Corporation, Mr. John Riel Cruz from SMSGT, Mr. Joseph Cabonillas from Mobile House, Miss Janet Fames from Microface Corporation, Miss Anne Asuncion of Axel Prime Technologies Inc., Mr. Reynante Talban from Torres Technology Center Corporation,